The People's Liberation Army Navy, simply Chinese Navy, made its major first and second moves on the table of chessboard of high seas. The aircraft carriers Liaoning and Shandong are symbolizing the winds of the change for the naval superiority of Western world. Now, they are just symbols, but tell us so much for the future. As the weapon detective, we are investigating these two carriers, what they mean. After Second World War, US Navy was the biggest naval power of the world, in terms of technological and overwhelming numeric advantage. American sailors had Anglo-Saxon naval tradition and had sharpened their experience and skills. Plus, more than one nation like United Kingdom and France, which had big fleet and experienced sailors, was ally of the USA. So, the Red Navy could not match these advantages in few decades. During the First Cold War, the oceans had secondary importance for the USSR. The surface fleet of the Red Navy had been organized to protect some defined areas called bastion. In case of Third World War, enormous amount of Soviet submarine and bomber would raid on Western sea lines and competence on the oceans. The control of the high sea had never been considered as the main goal. This was the most suitable choice. But Moscow also increased naval power step by step. In a long-term program, the USSR could catch the Western world on the high sea. Some serious moves were made. The first move was Moscow-class helicopters cruisers. The second step was their Kiev and one semi-Kiev or Baku-class aircraft carrying cruisers. And just before the sundown of the First Cold War, the aircraft carrying cruiser Admiral Kuznetsov was launched as Leonid Brezhnev. These seven sisters could not match the NATO's fleet, but they were good steps to achieve this goal someday. While the Red Star was fading in 1980s, the Red Dragon started to shine. China has become more capitalist country and started to need more raw material from overseas sources. Rising Chinese economy has increased the importance of sea lines. By 1990s, Chinese Navy started to transform from brown water fleet to blue water fleet. Actually, since 1970s, China has interested on aircraft carriers. Ex-Australian aircraft carrier HMAS Melbourne bought to scrap. And ex-Soviet aircraft carrying cruisers Minsk and Kiev were acquired and converted into tourist attractions. These so-called peaceful civilian purchases provided know-how about aircraft carrier technologies and designs to China. Like the Moscow in First Cold War, Beijing planned to proceed by little steps. An important event accelerated this transformation, Kosovo crisis. In 1999, Chinese naval planners were forced to acknowledge the fact that country needs considerable force projection capability to maintain its economical and political expansion. It was not an option, but the necessity to have carrier task group for Chinese Navy. When a US combat aircraft accidentally bombed the Chinese embassy in Belgrade during Kosovo War, China had already bought the Vyag from Ukraine. As the second Kuznetsov-class aircraft carrier, she was launched in 1988. The construction work was completed 68% when the USSR collapsed. After a little crisis ended, based on 1936 Montreux Convention, which does not allow aircraft carriers to pass Turkish Straits, the ship started her journey from the Black Sea to China in 2001. At that time Vyag did not have engine, so it was not accepted as real ship. And China guaranteed that she would use for touristic purposes. Beijing also gave promised more tourism and trading privileges to Turkey as a little bribe. As the whole world expected, China did not keep its word and completed construction of the Vyag. The ship entered service in 2011 as Liaoning. Different from Russian sister, Admiral Flotosovitskogo-Soyuz Kuznetsov, Liaoning does not have 12-tube P-700 surface-to-surface missile launcher. So, ship has more space for hangar or storage. China equipped the aircraft carrier with domestically developed subsystems such as Type 381 3D active electronically scanned array radar. The point defense also provided by Chinese HPJ-14 gun and FL-3000 Den missile systems. The main strike force of the carrier is J-15 combat aircrafts. This system was developed based on J-11, which is Chinese reverse engineering version of Su-27. Liaoning also carries Z-18F anti-submarine warfare, Z-18J airborne early warning, and Z-9C rescue helicopters. The ship has 67,500 tons full load displacement, 304.5 meters length, 75 meters beam, and 8.97 meters drafts. The maximum speed of the Liaoning is 32 knots, and with this speed she can reach the 7,130 kilometers range without refueling. In general mission, the ship carried 24 J-15 fighters in addition with 6 Z-18F, 4 Z-18J, and 2 Z-9C rescue helicopters. The second Chinese aircraft carrier Shandong entered service in 2019. The ship has improved design in comparison with its predecessor, like bigger hangar and storage facility for ammunition and jet fuel. Shandong's smaller island also provide more space for aircrafts on deck. The Fleet Command and Flight Control Tower are on separate floors, which provides more efficiency. So Chinese naval ship designers have learned their lessons comes from Liaoning experience. The real technical details of Shandong have not published yet, but it is believed that the ship's 70,000 tons full loaded displacement, 315 meters length, and 75 meters beam. It is estimated that her maximum speed is around 31 knots. So, you can find many of these historical and technical information from many internet sources. Okay, what do these pieces of knowledge tell us? First of all, we have to check on Chinese overseas interest. Today, China biggest factory of the world. This factory needs raw materials, energy, and markets. The main sources of raw material and energy are the Middle East and Africa. These two parts of world is linked with China by sea lines. In case of war, these lines could be disrupted. Could two Chinese aircraft carriers secure these routes? This is the first important question, and answer depends on which sea power would block the routes. Let's analyze the countries where near these sea lines. In case of war, only Indian Navy could stop the Chinese Navy, which is two aircraft carrier. If you look at the history and current political situation, Sino-Indian war is possible, but it is not expected. We mentioned this imaginary scenario, because maybe the only possible war, the world would not join it. At least in a short term. If China would declare the war to other countries throughout these important sea lines, there would have higher risk that Western powers would involve the crisis. So, Liaoning and Shandong would not be enough to secure Chinese sea trade. There are also several other threats on these sea lines, like piracy and terrorist groups. Two carriers do not provide real tactical advantage on them. The second important subject on Chinese naval interest is close waters like the Yellow Sea, the Japan Sea, the East China Sea, and the South China Sea. The meaning of a possible war on these seas would be a global-scale war. This scenario is very similar to the scenario about a possible war on Chinese sea lines to the Middle East and Africa. Liaoning and Shandong have less effect on a possible war, but they are highly effective to prevent a war. The disputes over Paracel and Spratly Islands are the third important topic. The Navy with two aircraft carriers provides important leverage to China. But don't forget, China has a different political culture than the Western world. It is passive-aggressive. Beijing can wait for a long time. During this time, China will become more powerful in terms of diplomatic and economic area. At the end, it could solve these problems in its own benefits without single shot. Time does not matter for 10,000 years empire. Okay, let's consider Liaoning and Shandong in terms of real combat value. These ships are short takeoff barrier arrested recovery system. It means relatively heavy J-15 fighters cannot be operated with their maximum takeoff capacity. Chinese naval staffs are already accepting this fact. The second handicap of this system, it is not suitable for heavier cargo planes. Russian naval reports on the operation on Syria show that Admiral Flotasovets Soyuz Kuznetsov needs American C-2 Greyhound-type cargo aircraft to maintain operation effectively. However, this type of aircraft can land but cannot take from the carrier, which has also short takeoff barrier-arrested recovery system. So, Liaoning and Shandong have some technical difficulties for real blue water carrier task group operations. Because of this reason, China declared that third and fourth aircraft carriers will have electromagnetic aircraft launch system or catapult-assisted takeoff but arrested recovery systems. If you have money and technical capability, you can build aircraft carriers. But real problems are to have good crew and doctrines. These problems can solve by only getting experience, in other words by time. In this respect, Liaoning and Shandong are very good training ships. Chinese naval staff knows that catching Western, especially Anglo-Saxon, naval tradition is long and hard process. Chinese Navy cannot close this distance with building new naval vessels. But new ships provide opportunity to start achieving this goal by time. If China continues dedicatedly its work, probably after 40-50 years, the world would say that everything started with Liaoning and Shandong. And the sun has raised from east again. Thanks for watching our new videos.